Why, hello there. Seems you have wandered into my lair. That must mean you displeased Lord Monocle and are awaiting a dip in the lava pits. You're in the right place. I'm Beryl, and today I will be teaching you some crafting. I like to do some needlepoint while my victims are in the lava, because really, what else is there to do when people are screaming in the lava? I suppose you could read a book or write music or such as that, but I prefer needlepoint because I get to stab the same thing over and over again and don't really have to worry about losing a minion due to blood loss or hearing them complain about their stab wounds and such. And the wonderful thing about needlepoint is the possibilities are endless. You can do a saying such as, "Lair evil lair. Do not bleed while in my presence. The beatings will continue until morale improves." Or you could do a landscape. You know, nice scenery, maybe some flowers, or some cute little puppies or kittens. Possibilities are truly endless. Today, I will be showing you how to do this cross stitch. It's for a wedding gift for my friend who's getting married in May. Now, I already worked on it, but as you can see, the floss that I used, it's metallic. It's a bit hard to see really, but while it looks semi-decent here, once it's in frame, you can't read it. So I will be going over it with this pretty blue floss. Now this is DMC floss and it's 6 strands, and I won't be using the full 6 strands as is. So I will be separating it out. So I will be using 1 strand while I stitch. I'm not entirely sure what color this is. All I know it's a pretty blue. It was in my grandmother's stash and she had wrapped it around some paper and failed to mark the color. So that's why I'm using it up. Because I do not know what color it is, and quite frankly, I'm too lazy to try to match it to any colors that we already have to try to figure out the name of the thread. It looks to be a bit of a cornflower blue, but don't quote me on that. You quote me on it and I'm wrong, you'll take a dip in the lava, so shush. Alright, I separated out a few strands because this will help get me started for right now, and I can always separate the others out in a bit. So get it untangled, because knots are not fun, especially with this. Now I learned this trick and it's really helped a lot with doing cross stitch and making the back of the cross stitch pretty neat. So let's see if I can get this threaded without too much difficulty. Without it splitting and such. There we go. Almost like I know what I'm doing. Anywho. You get the idea. Okay. So with this, I'm just going to go in with half stitches. Because it's already stitched, but I need some demarcation. So I'm just gonna half stitch it. And I would put it in a hoop, but I'm gonna see if I can do this without a hoop first. And yes, see if I can do it. So now, and I'll show you the back. But first I'm going to find where I'm starting. Now when I work on this, before I get started, it's fully graphed. Much like in this image, it's fully graphed. So when stitching, you find the center of your Aida cloth, or whatever sort of cloth you're using at the time. I use Aida. And you find the center much like it is on the graph, and that's where I start. I start there and I work my way out, because in that way I know where the center point is and I can work from there. Some people graph their ADA. My mother didn't, but I found it helps me keep track a lot easier of where I'm at on the project and such. So I'm going to be doing half stitches, and I'll show you what that is. So we'll focus. So I'm starting. I'm gonna. I want the stitches to go the same direction as which they are already going. So I'm not going to do my half stitches going this way. I want them all to go this way. So I'll show you on the back. This is how you, instead of having a loose thread, I love this method. It's called the loop method, and it works with any sort of even number thread. So if you're doing a 2 thread, you just use 1 string and you loop it, and then you have two strands. You can do it with 4, so you'll use 2 separate strands of DMC floss, and then it will be a 4 count thread. So see, it's nice and got that nice loop, and it's nice and secure. It's nice and anchored. So there we go. And that's 1 stitch done. So now I'm going to continue on. If I can do this. I can do this, but I can't see. White Ada and white thread is not fun. So, and then that happens. It's fine. It's fine. Just find someone to throw into lava. Take your frustrations out on some poor innocent soul, because cross-stitch is very soothing. There's nothing that would cause rage with cross-stitch, not at all. I don't know who would say that it's frustrating or that rage would ensue, because it never does. Not with me, never. So, I'm just kidding. I rage quite a bit. I would imagine. Come on, camera, focus. Hello. Okay, it's not gonna focus. It's fine. Okay, there we go. I like to twist my thread. It's probably not a good idea for it, but I like to do it because it makes it a little bit more secure. Less chances of it coming unthreaded, much like before. That's why it came unthreaded. I didn't twist it like I usually do. So, back to this. Find the square right there. Pull it up, and then go back down there. Now, these are not, it's not a full cross stitch, it's a half stitch. A full cross stitch makes an X, which, don't see. So, normally, this would focus. But you see with this cloth, it has squares. So, and what you do, you come up the 1 square. What do you? Oh. Anyway, so you do that, and then normal cross stitches form a complete X, which this one has in the past, but there's no need to do a full stitch because it's already stitched. I just need a bit of a demarcation so the wording pops better. You can see with the roses and the florals, it makes a full X. Maybe. But there's just more coverage with a full square. And you'll see once I'm done that the difference between a half stitch and a full stitch, possibly, if the camera will focus and wants to show it. Now normally this would be in a loop, not a loop, a hoop, a crafting hoop, such as this. This is too tiny, so I'm not using it. Of course, I'm also not using it because it leaves marks on the Ada, and I'm trying to lessen the amount of ironing I'm gonna have to do after this. So, but I like to use the hoops or any sort of frame because it helps keep the Ada taut, and it really helps with your stitching. It makes it look super nice in the end. But because I've already done that, and I'm just doing this to demarcate the lettering, I'm going to try to not use the hoop. Now usually when I use my hoop, I have my needle minder in place, which I probably should now, because I had one needle that escaped my clutches and went to Narnia, and I've not seen it at all. I heard it fall, I saw it escape, and I cannot find the little trickster anywhere. It's gone, disappeared completely. So now I bought needle minders, which are nice little magnetic pins of sorts. Actually, they can be of anything. You can use wood, but it's just magnets. Two strong magnets. So one goes on the back, one goes on the front, and it holds it there. And then you won't ever lose your needle. In theory, you won't ever lose your needle. I know my luck, and sometimes I still lose things, but I like to put them on my scissors, and that way I know where my scissors are and everything. So, but they are a bit heavy, and so it's really a smart idea to use them when your craft is in a frame of sorts, because then that way you have the support. So I messed up. Not really messed up, but I tried to do columns or rows. So what I did, I ended up going all the way to this portion, and I should have worked it, because now it's not a big deal because no one sees the back of your needlework. Not supposed to anyway. I don't know who sees the back of it, honestly. But I'll show you on the back when I finish this stitch what I'm talking about. Why it's a good idea to work it in columns as opposed to finishing a row. You see, you get this long little bit of thread. And it's not... That's where I started. Where am I at? This one. I can't see. So it's this thread. And it's not super long, but... Oh my goodness. It's not ragey at all. It just doesn't really make it super neat on the back look. But it doesn't affect the structure of the cross stitch. It's just a rookie mistake on my part, because I've seen some finished cross stitches from some people, and the back, it's so clean looking, and there's not a whole lot of threading like on this, like that. That doesn't exist on some cross stitches because they just know how to anchor their threads and how to work it properly and such. So but you can already see now that the wording is more noticeable. And that's only with with just a half stitch. If I did a full stitch, you wouldn't be able to see any of the metallic thread underneath. So that's why I'm doing the half stitch, because I'd still like for some of the metallic shimmer to be seen underneath. But like I said, with the metallic thread by itself, it's just not visible from afar once it's in a frame. So I'm going over it with the blue and a half stitch so you can see it. So I know you may be looking at this and thinking to yourself, didn't Beryl say that she was going to do half stitches to make the wording pop? To that I say, shut up. You're right. I was going to do half stitches. But by the time I finished, let's see, what all did I do? I did all of this here in half stitches. And while it looked kind of nice, there was one whole section. Actually, I did the whole in, now that I think about it. There was one whole section that the stitching didn't stay on the top, it slipped to the sides. So it kind of already looked like it was backstitched in some areas, and would have been great if all the stitches did that, but they didn't. So I finished the whole in and didn't like the way it looked, and so I spent maybe half an hour to an hour ripping stitches and rethinking my life's decisions. And so then went with my mother's original plan of just backstitching all the lettering. So that's what I'm doing now. And what I'm not doing though is I'm not doing the inside of the lettering, because the space is so small, it's really just going to distort the letter itself. So all we're doing is the outer lining, or the outline of the words. So there we go. It's just really going to make it pop from afar. Already you can tell that it's much easier to read. And I have a cat in my lap today. We have Wicket today. She's going to help me. See, that's a half stitch. It only takes up half of the square. So you're outlining the squares in the Aida cloth as opposed to filling them in like you do with cross stitching. So now let me take these out. So what I'm doing now, I'm outlining all of the top lettering, and then I will come back and do all the bottom. You have to be forceful yet gentle when you frame your Aida. So you don't really want to force it too hard and then end up breaking your hoop. But this is easier to put in a hoop because it's been handled before and washed before and stuff. Framing new Aida, it's so difficult and nerve-wracking because it's just so stiff that you're afraid that you may damage it or the hoop itself. But you just gotta be fearless. So you can see the back of the work and kind of what I mean about keeping neat stitches at the back. You can see with the metallic thread how neat it looks, how nice it looks. So basically, if you hold it up in the mirror, you can read what it says. But you can see from the back stitching how not quite ugly, but it's just not what I wanted the back to look like. So, but luckily it's going in a frame, no one's going to see it, it's all good. So now, and this makes it easier to hold as well with it being in the frame. Now back stitching is pretty easy. It's just you have to see where your stitching is at. And I'll show you with the diagonals what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to go in with each square. So instead of having it have a staircase effect, it's going to look like it's handwriting does, where it's just going to be very smooth and fluid. Can't see. I think I did the top. We'll find out. We'll find out if I pull this thread through and it comes unthreaded. Okay, yeah, went through the top. So now, pull that through, and now instead of going not there, it's too far. Now you can see that the Ada splits, so you don't want to be impatient and stitch through a split because it's going to affect the overall look later. Yeah, remember how I did it with the other G. Normally I wouldn't care, but because the letters are so close to each other, I don't want to deviate. Because if I change the way I do this G, it's going to be noticeable as opposed to how I did it on this one. Now I can do however I like I can change it up, I can do more diagonals on any of these other ones, because there's not anything to compare it to, basically. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to move everything over so the other G is in frame as well, so I have a reference. And again, make sure I don't have my thread outside of the hoop. Get caught in the hoop, that's never fun. So I'm going to do this. Make sure it's taut. See? And it just, again, it makes it look a little bit nicer as opposed to cutting into every single angle. Because when you start doing that, it doesn't look bad still, but it makes it look, so you can see here, with this one I went in every single square and then up. And it doesn't look horrible, but it just doesn't, it's personal preference, really. So from there, Now, usually when I cross stitch, I watch movies. I'll watch, my go-to really is the extended edition Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I watch that because I've seen it so many times that I don't have to pay attention to it. It's just background noise. So again, we're at the end, so now we're going to half stitch the diagonals. You see, as you can tell, or as you can see, with this one, this G, I did the stair-step effect on the inner portion of it. That's the outer portion, this is the inner portion. And so, now looking at this one, while I want to just do the diagonal stitch on the inner portion of the G, I'm not going to because they're diagonal from one another. So if I do this G different, it's going to be quite obvious as opposed to how I did it on this one. So while I don't want to do it like this, I'm going to have, well, I don't have to, but for uniformity and aesthetic for others, it will look better if I do it exactly like I did this one. So I'm going to do that. So we're going to stair step. So up, same as before, because there's another in here. I'm going to stitch this in the same as I did this one. Feeling quite evil today. I have my cat in my lap and all is right with the world. Every evildoer should have a cat. It's a bit of a requirement, I suppose. Just turn in your chair with the cat in your lap. I know, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. You know, it's kind of one of those things, I suppose. Not sure if you can see it, but on the inside of this N, there's this blank, there's an empty square. Now this is what I'm saying with I'm not stitching the inside of the lettering, because if I stitch the inside of that, it's going to end up filling that spot in with this blue thread. And so therefore then it's going to change the whole design of the letter, because it's supposed to be cursive, but if you fill it in, it doesn't make sense because not all of the won't be uniform. So just the outline is going to be backstitched. So from afar, people can read what it says without too much difficulty. So now we're going back down. I'm going to have to get a new thread here in a bit. Okay, now I'm going to have to
move my cloth in the hoop again, because now I'm getting too close to the hoop in order to stitch it. I can still stitch it, but it's just going to be difficult and frustrating. And I need less frustrating, because cross-stitching is a calming hobby. It's peaceful. There's no stress in cross-stitching at all. None. I don't know who told you it's stressful. They're liars. The stitching from the eye and the N are so close together, I'm just going to fill in the space in between it. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna call it quits with that thread and get a new strand. Not really sure how I got into cross-stitching. I think mostly it's because of my mother, but I don't know how she got into cross-stitching, because my nan, she was more into knitting and crochet. She did a lot of crochet the whole time I knew her. That's all I ever knew her to do, was mostly crochet. I think I remember seeing her knit every now and again, but she was legally blind, so it's really amazing to see her do these crafts and such. All really well, too. What was ever? I don't know, maybe when I'm a bit older I can learn to crochet. I just can't ever get the tension correct when I crochet. I guess that's why I prefer knitting. It's just, you can keep the tension right and such. I'm not gonna stream, I'm not gonna record myself knitting, because if you think this is boring, oh goodness. My knitting is not much better. Can't really make anything fancy knitting. I think I made a glove. Literally, I made one. Then I was working on the second one. Completely miscounted on my stitching, and I think I skipped a complete row and gave up on it. So, yes, I have one glove, and that's it. So, I can make scarves. I can make scarves all day long. They're quite simple. There's really no counting needed with it. But my boyfriend wears hats, knitted hats, well, knitted and crochet. But again, I won't crochet it, and he'll get a knitted beanie. But I need to learn how to do that. That will be interesting. So there we go. We are done with living. Looks quite good if I do say so myself. So, now that that's done, I could continue on with this thread and stitch in, but if I knew I was going to do that, I would have started over at the L first and then moved my way to the G, because then I wouldn't have all this excess going across the back. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to finish this off. Because I have so much thread, it's not really, it just works better for me to start with a new skein of thread, basically. I gotta try to do this with this hoop. Okay, nope. Not gonna happen. So we're gonna take the hoop off, secure this thread, anchor it down, tie it in a knot, and then move on from there. Keep calm and carry on, as it were. Excuse me. That can get edited out, maybe. Sorry, Monocle. Sorry you had to hear that. Enjoy. Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes I tend to do that. If I can't get a clear view of the hole that the stitch is going to, I will kind of dig it out to make the hole bigger so I know exactly where I'm going. That sounds kind of dirty, but it's not, I assure you. Now I'm trying to see if I like the way this looks before I continue on, because that's how I usually end up doing my projects. I will do a full letter or a full section before I decide I don't like this, and then I have a lot of work to undo. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go in at that bottom stitch and then go do my half stitches from there. So, hello, Mr. Frog. I didn't think to see you again so soon. So we're gonna rip it. I pick my stitches out because if I use a seam ripper, it has this nice sharp bit right there at the crook, and it's nice and sharp. So let me find, so knowing my luck, if I seam rip them out, this is what's gonna happen. You fish it. Knowing my luck, I'd go too deep and cut it. So I prefer to pick it out with the needle because there's less chance of accidentally cutting my thread and then having a very nice rage moment and having to undo everything and then getting new thread. So You never know. I don't know how many times my thread has looped and I thought, it's not gonna be that serious. And I pull it through and then it turns into a knot. So it's not a good idea to force your thread when it loops. It's a good idea to really stop what you're doing and unloop it, untangle it. Because I speak from experience, it's not pleasant to have a knot. First cross stitch I did in a while, I had a really bad knot in the thread and I didn't care. I just kept pulling it through and then got really knotted at one point, and so what I did, I just finished it off in the back and grabbed a new thread of that color and continued on. So the back of that cross stitch is really quite ugly. So that one is definitely not going to be shown off. But the front of it looks good, and that's really all that matters. 'Cause that's the part that's going to be seen. And I've come to realize a lot when I cross stitch that the more I go on with a cross stitch, I find ways to make it look better, I suppose. Make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So here, instead of moving over just that really tiny stitch, it's only one square, and the metallic stitching is so thick right there, I'm not even gonna bother. I'm just gonna go straight up into a diagonal. And then we're going to continue on with the diagonals. Because really, I'm doing this so it mimics the way when you write, that's how I want it to look. So, I'll show you. So you see, here's where I'm at on the stitch right now. It's coming down, it's over, it's down. So I'm right here at this stitch. So instead of stair-stepping it, where I'm going down and then up and down and up and down and up, I'm going straight like that. So it would, because when you write, using cursive, and my cursive is horrible. So, but see, it's just a bit more fluid. So that's how I'm mimicking. That's how I want the stitching to look. I want it to mimic how handwriting actually looks. If that makes any sense, I don't know. It seemed like it made sense in my head, but then when I spoke it, I don't know if it made sense. That tends to happen. I know what I'm talking about, so that's what matters, really? Yes. If it makes sense to me, that's all that matters. You can figure it out on your own accord. I'm not gonna hold your hand through this. Yes, the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm realizing I don't know what I was thinking when I thought white metallic thread. That's the thing, it's not fully white metallic thread, it's part. Where's the thread at? I don't even know if I have it nearby. No, I don't. It's out in the other room. But I'm not sure if you can see, but this is white thread. It's opal is what it's called. So it's white thread and it has well, it's not really white. It's a very pale blue with like blue and white metallic-y bits in it. And so I mixed that with the white metallic thread with the white metallic bits in it, thinking, oh hey, a mixture of the two will make it look nice. Will make it pop, as it were. And on my test sample, I thought it did. But then when I completely finished it and framed it, the regret set in. The regret and rage of, well, crud, now I have to redo it. But luckily, nope, not there. Yep, there. But luckily with cross stitch, you don't have to, at least with this one, I didn't have to completely redo it. I get to outline it and it works just as well. So. This was an interesting pattern to do because I had the individual lettering bought from it. The actual lettering pattern was bought, and I had to piece it all together. So, because the separate words, the I extends up, and yeah. So I had to get into a program and make all the letters connect. Because cursive lettering, it's supposed to connect. That's why it's cursive. So I could have done it where the letters did not connect. They were just separate, like how, you know, where there's a separation with the letters, but I couldn't do that. I have to make things difficult, and I have to make more work for myself, because that's how I am. A bit of a masochist in that sense. It's worth it in the end. I'm not saying it's not. I mean, it takes twice as much work to do a quick job, so you may as well. I don't want to do things half-arsed, because then you have to go back and you have to redo it, or you deal with the fact that it just doesn't look good. So. But the more you cross-stitch, I'm not gonna say easier it becomes. Well, I mean, I guess it could be easier. You just get used to it. So you can stitch faster. I don't normally stitch like this, where you thread it completely through. I normally do my half, where I just where I do more of a hand stitching, like a hand quilting type stitch, or just a hand stitch, really. So instead of doing, you know, can't really, I've not done it with lettering. When I do, actually, shoot, I don't think I've done it at all with these last few projects. Now that I think about it, because the last ones I've done have all been lettering, so. But when it's more, when there's a bigger area to fill, I don't really know what you would call it. I guess it's like a quilting stitch. I honestly don't know. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I know how to sew, and I know how to cross stitch, but I'm not good with naming the technique of it. I know a French knot. I've not done a French knot yet. That's going to happen next project I do. That's going to be interesting. I don't know if I'm going to win this game of thread chicken. We'll find out. Sometimes it surprises me, you know, like I'll be stitching and it doesn't seem like I'm gonna have enough thread to finish the current working area, but then be able to make it work. And that's always exciting. And it does. So, and it goes all the way over. And again, I'm trying to mimic how the, not really mimic, I'm trying to do the lettering all the same. So we're gonna go up. And back up and down. Back up and then back down again. And then, let's see where you at. We'll go here. Oh, we're kind of close. But I think we're gonna make it. Yep. Down. Try this wicket. And then over. Oh yes, look at that. We still have plenty to spare. You don't want to pull it too tight because then you don't want your you don't want to cause a wrinkle. You pull it too tight, then it's gonna add stress to the thread and it skews the way it appears on the front. Basically, it's gonna pull, as you can see, maybe. On here, you see where there's like a hole that's bigger. Like right there. That's because I pulled the thread too tight. Not really too tight, but I just pulled it tighter than it was supposed to, and it just stresses. Not quite sure if stresses is the right word, but it just pulls the Ada and it makes the hole bigger. And it just doesn't really look quite that well in the finished product. Other people won't really notice it, but I notice it. So, and that's really what it boils down to in a lot of the cases is the person I'm making this for won't notice the flaws, but I'd notice. And I just like to try to put out the best quality that I can. I'm trying to make sure I get this space so I don't have to redo it, or not really redo it, but so I won't have to move. Okay, yeah, I can do that. Because now that I'm here at the end, I don't want to have to keep moving my cloth around. So here we go. The home stretch, as it were. thing of it is too, even if you do it, even if you replicate the technique, like with the eyes on here, I've done all of them the exact same way, but it depends on how the stitching that's previously existing there, like the metallics, depending on how those are done, which they're all done the same way, but sometimes it's not going to be exactly the same everywhere. So it's not all going to look, it's not going to look machine done, essentially. But that's what's good, that's the great thing about handmade items. They have imperfections, and that's what makes them unique and special and all that sentimental stuff. There we go. And then we're going over. And then down, and then back up, and then down, and over, and diagonal, and... It's like there's patterns to this or something. Who would have thought? And there. Diagonal one, and then down one. Probably turn this into a game. Cross stitch with a buddy, and you could kind of turn this into Battleship in a sense. I have to go down 2 and over 1. Does that hit anything of yours? Nah, it's a miss. Oh crap. Are you sure? Pretty sure that's a hit. Nah, it's a miss. Just continue on. At some point you're gonna get a hit. Maybe. Unless they cheat. Move their pieces around. In which case you throw them in the lava. That'll teach them. Sometimes you can't help. Like, no matter how hard you try, you still end up splitting threads. So, there's really nothing you can do about it. Again, that's what makes it unique. Because there will be imperfections and such, and I mean, it's just the way it is. No matter how good you are at something that you do, there will always be imperfections. Especially with needle crafts such as this, you know, and with quilting and sewing and, you know. Because the thing of it is, unless someone knows what they're looking for, they won't see the mistakes. Like when I get done with this completely, I'll show the finished product, and I'm gonna tell you now, there's a mistake in it. Actually, there's a few mistakes, but really, unless you look at it under a microscope, and you look at it, I mean, really, I mean, that's the thing, like, no matter how hard you look at it, you probably won't be able to tell where the mistake is. And that's the good thing is, well, I mean, it's not really a good thing, but I guess that's what I mean, like, that's the beauty of it, is you can't really tell. And that's why I like doing floral cross stitches and such, because you can make the mistakes and they won't be noticeable. Like if you do a geometric pattern and a lot of line work, then yeah, you'll be able to notice the mistakes easier. Because with that, it's you definitely have to be, you have to have the right number of stitches, you have to be on the right count in the right section of the, you know, of your working space. And that's probably why I won't ever do a geometric pattern, at least anytime soon. Mostly because I have a feeling it would give me a headache. Well then, I just noticed something about this cross-stitch. Son of a bitch. Oh god, the way I'm doing this stitch, and I'm just now seeing, I don't know, it's probably me just having a dirty mind, but I am seeing something emerging from these letters, and oh well, I don't think anyone will notice. It's probably because I'm tired and I'm just seeing things. I don't think so. Can you see what I see? It looks, yeah, I don't know. Good gosh. And suddenly dicks. Like, okay. Really? Just, wasn't supposed to be subliminal dicks in here, but there are. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's just, this cross stitch is just being a dick about it. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's totally fine. I'm not redoing this. I'm not. I refuse to do this all over again. I almost had a moment where I was like, why don't I have enough thread to finish the eye and the, or you know, finish the eye? And then I remembered, oh hey, because there's another letter in this word. Cough. This pattern has made me question myself quite a few times. Like, I made up the pattern and then I was in the shower and I was like, why was I trying to figure out what size to make the R? Because really the R was slightly bigger than the other letters. And so I had to make sure I had to kind of resize it and alter it a bit so it fit the, so it was at the top of the same, it wasn't taller than any of the other letters. And so then I was in the shower and I'm like, why was I trying to figure out the R? There's no R in this cross stitch anywhere. There's no R in living. And then I had to remember what the pattern actually said. And it's like, oh yeah, there is an R in longer. It's funny how that happens. because this way when I finish, I'm going to finish close to the eye, and I'll just continue on from there, and I'll move on to the numbers. Instead of starting here and finishing off this and then having all that extra to cut off, I'll be starting here, and then there will be less distance to go on the back from this area into the numbers. So that way I'm still using the same thread. I like to get as much use out of my thread as I can before I have to move on and get a new piece. And that's why the back of the florals look the way they do. I'll show you when I finish this completely. I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about. I have a feeling like with other projects, I'm going to do this and I'm going to look at it and I'm going to go, no, don't like the way that looks. And again, like I said, I'm going to undo all of it. Nah, doesn't look too bad. Okay. We'll continue on. I personally don't really care for backstitching because I feel like it affects the look of the finished cross stitch. Because if I spend all this time doing a full square coverage and then I'm outlining it and backstitching, it just affects the way it looks. That's just me. I don't know. That's the way I feel about it. That's why I try to avoid doing backstitching as much as possible. But sometimes it can't be helped. It does differentiate certain areas in the cross stitch. Makes some areas stand out more. So, I mean, I can understand it, but just me personally don't care for it. It can't be helped sometimes. This time was one of those times. Though really I could have just ripped out all the metallic stitching and done it in a solid color and everything would be right with the world. But I wanted to use metallic thread because it looks very wedding themed. I was gonna say wedding I don't know, whatever. Beryl should not make up words. It does not bode well. Trying to make the ends of the thread even. Actually, you know what? Doesn't matter. I care not if the thread is even. I'm at the end of this cross stitch. I don't have to get the most use out of this thread as I have to. As I would if I was doing the flowers or such. So I care not. That's how you can tell I'm getting near the end of a project. My give a f**ks just go out the window. That can be edited out, right? I don't think that needs to be. I am a lady with the vocabulary of a well-educated sailor. So it happens. That knot, I can't believe that. That's upsetting. Honestly. Okay, you can go up. So I'm gonna start at the 12. We'll start. Should I do that diagonal? No. Get the caught. Nope, don't split that. Just catch it. There we go. Son of a... What? I thought that was a longer thread. Okay, it's not as long as I thought it was. Because I looped it too far. Okay, that happens too. I just pull the thread out completely. Oh, goodness. Am I almost done with this? Can I be done with this already? Please? I just want to be done with this and move on to another project. Oh, good lord, where are you? There. Got you this time. Oh, good lord. Okay, don't need to go down there because it's going to pull it through in the back. So, come on. Nope, nope. Yahtzee. No! Son of... Oh my god. Where are you? Where are you? Okay, you're the excess. So, son of a... It's fine. Everything's fine. Oh, good lord. Okay, now I gotta find where that loop was. Where's the beginning of my... Where's my anchor point is what I'm getting at. You're the anchor point. You're the spare. Okay, there we go. Now it's completely anchored. Let me get rid of this excess before I... Okay, now we can continue on. So you go there. And onward we move. Not gonna have enough to do the 18 either, I don't think. Oh my goodness, I'm not gonna... It's fine, I'm not crying. Everything's fine. I hate everything right now. Holy shit. This is how all my cross stitches go. I think I'm further along and I'm not. And then just the sadness and the regrets and the everything, and it's fine. Everything's fine. Ow. Okay. Yep. I pulled my thread too, and then when I pulled it to the side to make it taut, I dragged the needle across my chin, and so I've scratched my chin. That happens. Luckily, embroidery needles aren't super sharp. I have stabbed my lip before, and my tongue. to definitely work around. I don't know why that looks like that. Yeesh. You see, that's on the diagonal like all the other ones, but it's just that one stitch just went rogue and doesn't look quite nice, but oh well. There's really nothing you can do. I mean, I suppose you could undo it or, you know, frog it and then redo it, but again, you have to pick your battles. Do you want to lose your mind trying to make every single stitch perfect? I don't. I've given up on that. It's that whole 3 feet rule, or is it 3 feet, 5 feet? One of those. If you can't notice it from that distance away, no one else is going to notice it, so you just move on. Because this is a personalized piece, I double and triple and quadruple. I checked I don't know how many times to make sure that the date was correct. Oh goodness, it was because that's one thing you really don't want to do on a personalized piece for someone. So screw up the date. I don't know where you came from, but you can bugger off. No! Oh, why in the... Why? It's because I'm getting near the end is exactly why this is happening. I am almost done with this cross stitch, and now everything is just going tits up. Where are... Oh, thank you. Oh. Where are you? Okay. No. Fuck. Oh, are you... Maybe... Can I... Oh, God. Okay, here's a risk. Here's a gamble. I'm not a gambling woman, but now I am. And... Okay, there we go. Whew, thank God. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. And there we go. All finished. Oh, don't do... Son of a... It's fine. I'm just gonna have to reapply the label that I put on here. That's fine. Alright. I'm gonna take this out of the hoop. And then secure that thread. Oh, come on, where are you? Oh, come on. Right at the end. Nothing wants to work properly. Oh. Shit. Bollocks. There you go. Yay, all done. See, this is what I'm saying about trying to get the most use out of my thread. This yellow, you can see how long it is on the back, but on the front, I only used it in these very few spots. So instead of using shorter thread and having the back look neater, I just used a really long thread and then anchored it down with the other colors that I used more of that had more coverage, so like the greens and the blues and such. So there you go. Try to get the wrinkles out a little bit and press it and such before I I'm gonna have to press it again before I put it in the frame. But there we go. We're all done now. Oh, finally. There you go. Thank you again for coming to my lair of crafts and doom. But there's no doom. No doom. Just crafts. See you next time. Bye-bye. So cute. Hmm?